Good morning and welcome to all of you who are here live for this last of our 7 sessions on the Chenrezik practice, forearm Chenrezik from Tangtong Gyalpo. And then also those who are watching on YouTube, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and a very warm welcome too. Let's start briefly with our good motivation. As you know, when we go through the practice a little later on, then Refuge and Bodhichitta is developed more fully there. But let's just remind ourselves now that we're here for everyone and turn our hearts in loving care to each and every sentient being, from the tiniest bugs to the devas and everybody.
Sonje chodam soje chonamla jancho badhon dane chapsenje tagi jinso jipe sonamje rola penchera sanje drop parashu semchen tamche dewa dong dewe judang dem parajuche dungal dong dungal je judang tralwara juche Dungal me pe dewa damba dang men tralwara juche. Yereng chadon ne tang tralwe tang yom chenpo la ne para jure je. Zeyata shame shamawate shameta shadru Om kure marajite karota ke orete jovate oloyane Vishodane male malapanaye kukure kaka grase Grasanao muki paramukya muki shamedawane Sawa grahabandanane negri hitva Sawa ba pravadina vimukta marapasha Savitva Buddha Mudra Anankatita Savamare Bhutsarita Parishuddhe Bhiga Shantu Savamara Kama. Halden Sawe Lama Rinpoche Tagye Chewara Pende Denshula Kadrin Chempo Gone Jesonte Kuson Tuje Ngadrop Saldo Sol. As we've gone along, we've considered these different sections of the Chenrezik practice, and we've looked at what we do and also some of the understanding behind what we do, so we can understand how to do it for the best with the right kind of attitude, the right kind of feeling. And so it's in, we can say, 3 very main parts. We start with the Refuge and Bodhichitta, and then we have the practice itself, and then we have the dedication at the end. If we make it 4 parts, then in the practice itself, then we have 2 main stages or phases that we have in all Vajrayana practices: creation phase and completion phase. And you might find different translations for those. I think they're the most commonly used. So far, until today, in the actual practice, we've been in the creation phase. Now, as the name implies, creation, we are the key, what can you say? We are doing something.
I hope you've understood as we've gone through the sections up to now that although we are creating with our imagination, because that is our main creative tool, you're not taking material stuff and making Chenrezig above your head. It's all in your mind. It's an exercise of imagination. We use that word, visualization. But I hope you've understood that even though that's the case, if we just stay in a rigid kind of control area, where from beginning to end we are making this happen during these 5 minutes and this happen during the next 5 minutes, if it's all under our control in the creation phase, we're not going to get very far. There are several points, if you revise what we've done so far, where it is absolutely helpful, vital, essential that we open up to let something bigger than us in. I'm not speaking philosophically, technically, 100% perfectly, because we're letting in our Buddha nature, which is also you. But on a relative level, which is what all these practices are for, if you're 100% on absolute truth level, you don't need to be here. We're here because you're in a body and you're down here on earth. You've got blooming karma. You're in a world of suffering and you want to understand suffering to help everybody else. So relatively, our relative self needs to create, as we've seen, the lotus above the head, the moon disk, then the three. And then once we have the three, which we've worked on hard with our own creative power, which is another story. Like I said, I could do with another few weeks for these teachings. But when you understand your creative power and how you invest it and how your life is driven by it, what a big thing it is for us, then here we're using our creative power to get out of samsara, which often our creative urge takes us into. Right? So we like creating samsara. So we're going to learn to create doors of openness to nirvana, our Buddha nature. So once we have the three, which we are practicing shamatha with all of our strength, making that three perfect and holding our mind with it, and then through that, through our deliberate creation, we imagine the lights that radiate out, giving the offerings and helping sentient beings. And there should be a time of openness, because once we've done that, then when the lights return from all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas with their blessing of Chenrezig, we should feel open. We're not controlling it rigidly and imagining, yes, this blessing from this one, this blessing from this one. There is already openness in the creation phase. And then through that, we get the transformation of the three, you'll remember, into Chenrezig. So now we've gone deeper into our relationship with our Buddha nature, with our compassion. Now our Guru, Chenrezig, the compassion of all the Buddhas, we feel is right there above our head. It's like I can reach out, you can't see it. I just put my hand on a warm cup of coffee. I can feel the warmth. It's like you can feel Chenrezig come up as compassion. Tangtong Gyalpo's compassion. Your Guru's compassion. They're right there. So then we're open to it. But then we develop that openness, as we saw a few weeks ago. We do the Jowo Junji prayer again and again, 108 times, if you do the practice in retreat, until something shifts and you long with all your being to be like Chenrezig. So through that, but we're still in the creation phase, because once that happens, then we're helping it, let's say, by visualizing, imagining that then through that feeling of sincere devotion, we also become Chenrezik. We are now the part of us that's our true nature. Not only that, everything and everyone around us at that moment, after Jowo Jernji, when the light shines so brilliantly from Chenrezik, and we become Chenrezik, everybody becomes Chenrezik Tara, and everywhere becomes a Pure Land. And then, using our creative, imaginative power, we learn to travel in this state of receptive openness to refine it. As we've seen with 3 qualities, which I hope you know by now, and you could tell me, which are clarity and purity and certainty. The idea of practice as a path is that session after session, week after week, year after year, this is a journey of making it better and better, more and more familiar. So in our imagination or in our refining process, now we've gone through Chenrezik and we're working on the image step by step, trying to see like the 5 jeweled crown more clearly, but then that's the clarity, and then with the purity, we know it's the presence of the 5 Buddha families. So Chenrezik, the compassion of all the Buddhas, and we studied the Buddha families in the previous course a little bit. All of that's there. And it's embodied in a crown. That way we work through the whole body. And then once we're more used to that, then we go inside the body. And inside the body, in the heart center, there's the lotus, the moon disk, and then syllable Shri, and then Om Mani Padme Hum disposed around it. And so we did that last week. And we are using this secret of visualization for the creation phase. It's not that you have to make it. We relax. It's the feeling it's already there, if only I could see it and tune into it. So the heart center of Chenrezik above us, at the same time our own heart center. There's the visualization, moon disk, lotus, tree, Om Mani Padme Hum. And then last week we saw 10 ways that as we're saying the mantra, then we can vary our practice with giving us different benefits. We can work with the image of Chenrezik. And then also in another one, we can work with the simultaneity of the image of Chenrezik and Shunyata, voidness. We can work with the sound, as we say, Om Mani Padme Hum. We can use it as a one-pointed focus. Then in another aspect, we can be in the simultaneity of the sound of the mantra and Shunyata. And then we can focus on the syllable Shri in Chenrezig's heart, and it radiates helpful light in the way we did last week. Then we can focus on Om, Mani Padme Hum, each of the syllables. We did all that last week. So when you come, I was going to say to the end of the mantra session, but it's not the end of the mantra session. But when you've done whatever you can manage of those 10 activities in mantra time, then we come to the completion stage. We've finished creating, so now we dissolve. In many practices, it's called dissolution or completion stage. Now, here we're learning how to practice Chenrezig for the rest of our lives, how to do it on our own. Not, as I've said many times, not how to join in a Dharma center. So if you're in Samiling, when they do the evening Chenrezig, it's not just Samiling, it's not a criticism of Samiling. Lots of Dharma centers do this, but there's two things that drive me bananas. And that have gone wrong over the years, because we had very definite instruction in Om Mani Padme Hum from one of the greatest Manipas of the 20th century, Lama Lamcho. He had so much respect from the 16th Jawa Karmapa as being, probably at the time, because there were refugees, there were so few Kajupas in India. Amongst the Kajupas, he was the expert on Chenrezig practice, and we had the good fortune to have him in Samiling. And because he was there and teaching so beautifully, we undertook the commitment, Akon Rinpoche did, that together we would do 100 million manis, which we did, together. So there, he gave instruction. Now, the two things that drive Ken bananas, right? The first one is that when you get to the mantra, and everyone's doing Om Mani Padme Hum, they turn the lights down. Why? When you're visualizing the mantra and lights radiating, if anything, turn the lights up. Bring in floodlights so that you have the feeling of the whole universe being flooded by light. But when the lights go down, it's the evening, people have had a hard day's work. They come in, they've just recited the Chenrezig prayer. And it gets kind of sleepy. In fact, there are three things that drive me bananas, right? That's the first one. They turn the lights down. The second one is that people go quiet. And in the instructions we received, the beauty of it, the beauty of Sangha is you can sit there and you can chant Om Mani Padme Hum together. And people can make harmonies. And it says, as you listen to the sound of the mantra, it's like listening to a swarm of bees. And when you've got quite a few people in the shrine room and they're saying it out loud, it's marvelous that this dimension of space becomes huge. And you hear different tonalities, high, low, different modulations. You really get a feeling of universal compassion. So it does say to recite out loud is very good. You can do it, it says, so only your shirt collar can hear, or silently. But when we do a group practice, it should be chanting. So in the earlier days of Samiling, it was very nice. People did chant. But now it's a few, and then everyone, and then you feel the sleepiness. It's kind of, oh man. And as my friend Donald Creedon says sometimes in his courses, he says, when he sees people falling asleep, he says, Buddha means the awakened one, not the sleepy one. So it's a lovely sleep when you go asleep in meditation. Some of the nicest sleep in the world, but we're not there for that. We're there for the light of compassion to shine. That's the second thing that drives Ken bananas. And the third thing is that when we do practice in general, the creation phase and the completion phase should be fairly equal in length. And depending where you are in your practice, sometimes even more time in the completion phase. So what happens is that there's a lot of Om Mani Padme Hum and recitation, and then there's the one that closes the recitation, Om Mani Padme Hum Re. Then completion phase time, 1 minute at the maximum, and then carry on with the prayers. So, okay, in Dharma centers, they're short of time. I understand that. But the completion stage is very, very important. And So that's what I need to talk about today and to introduce. Don't have a lot of time because we need to go through the whole practice as well. So the completion phase is where we work on ultimate reality, Shunyata. We have relative reality, which is manifestation in all of its aspects, samsaric manifestation, and then the manifestation of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas to help beings. That's relative reality, situations relative to this person, their karma. But none of that could happen. None of it could happen if there was not ultimate reality, which is the utter mobility of mind, to be, as it says in the Mahamudra teachings, in itself nothing whatsoever, but to manifest as anything whatsoever. In itself nothing whatsoever, but to manifest as anything whatsoever. So let's take a mirror as an example. I mean, this is not a teaching on absolute reality. We need weeks, as you know. We've done it before. But just I need to explain a minimum so we know what we're doing in this phase. Let's take a mirror for an example. A mirror needs to be clear so that it can reflect. Now, if you've got a bit of rust in a mirror, an old mirror, that part of the mirror can't reflect. When the mirror doesn't have any blemishes, whatever comes in front of it is perfectly reflected. And the amazing thing is, the mirror has no own image. If it did, you'd see that whenever you looked at it. If there was anything there when you looked at the mirror, that would be what you see. But the fact that it has no own image, no own fixed nature, enables it to reflect, no matter how fast. You've got the Tour de France going by, hundreds of cycles in front of a mirror. It doesn't have to say, slow down, guys. It can reflect them all perfectly every split second, even to 100th, 1,000th of a second, and in every detail. So our mind, your mind, my mind wherever it is, however it's present, anywhere, has no fixed nature. And this we call Shunyata. And it's because it's like that that it can produce everything from heaven to hell. And hell could turn into heaven in 1 second. It happens sometimes when people have powerful experience. I've seen it in Samiling's shrine room. Someone can be crying in sadness 1 second, and then something goes on in their mind, and they start laughing at the fact that they were crying and the fact that they were so down. They feel liberated. How can that be? Where did the sadness go? Where does the laughter come from? The ground state, every moment, right now, of our mind is this amazing ability to produce anything, but the mind itself can never be found. In our next course, Mahamudra, we'll be looking at that at length. But just now, we're trying to understand Chenrezig. The way we'll approach it is that everything we have created in the creation phase will dissolve. Through doing this, we are purifying our death karma. It's a very important part of the practice. We're all going to die. It will be very challenging when it comes and when it happens. And not just going to die in this life. We have the karma for many more lives to come, for sure. And in each of those lives, we will die in a different way. That's already pre-programmed. Because it's programmed in our mind, and it hasn't happened yet, we can purify our death in this life and our death in future lives, and the dissolution stage or the completion stage of the Chenrezig practice will help us with that. This is why we do need always to give it time. Now, not only death at the end of this life, but our own meditation practice. We will need to learn on the cushion, and then to take that with us when we get up from the cushion and go about in life, to return every reality we solidify, to return, to become aware as we're living it of the Shunyata nature, that it's an experience of our mind as you're eating your porridge in the morning. Okay, you're eating it mindfully, and you're mindful of the spoon, you're mindful of the taste and everything that's happening. But it's all an experience of your mind. And what is that mind that enables this experience? And if in the middle of your porridge, you suddenly remember that you left a tap running, the image of the tap running that comes up in your mind, how can that come? How can it go? We learn in Mahamudra not to switch off from reality and go into some state called Shunyata, where you're kind of zonked and you're gone and you're just spaced out. That's not Buddhist practice. We learn to recognize that everything that happens, every moment, is an experience of mind, relatively, but ultimately that mind has no porridge, no spoon, no tap, no running water. Otherwise, they'd be there in mind forever. They're not. So in our Dharma practice, in our Mahamudra practice, we are going to be bringing each moment, dissolving away from it into Shunyata. Now, that's one part of the completion phase. The next part is that having learned to do that, to return our moments of awareness to a Shunyata awareness, then we need to integrate that in daily life. So in this Chenrezig practice, once we've done the formal dissolution stage, then if one way of looking at it is the completion stage, which is Shunyata, ultimate reality, then we take into everyday life. In many practices, because it's the nature of mind, we bring the Buddha, the deity, out of nowhere. Many prayers in Tibetan start, Tompa Nidu Jura. Everything is voidness. Tongle, and then it says, so out of the voidness now appears Vajrayana, whichever one it is. So we start the practice, we go through all the mantra, all the stages, but at the end, we pack Vajrayana away. So we dissolve, we do a dedication, then we go back to our daily life. Many, many practices are like that. You take the deity out of the box, they become real, go through the practice, you put it back in the box until you come back. With Chenrezig, at the end, we don't do that. We carry our simultaneity of absolute relative truth into daily life. So when you get up from the cushion of Chenrezig practice, remember who you've been in the practice. You became Chenrezig. So Chenrezig gets up off the cushion, and you go out into the Pure Land, and you try and see the Buddha inside everyone, the Tara, the Chenrezig. You try to see the purity in everything. You keep the feeling of the practice in your heart. Wonderful love of Om Mani Padme Hum that reaches out to beings in their suffering. As you walk along the street, as you meet people, as you talk with them, you don't leave the practice. You learn to integrate it into your life. It's beautiful. It's very, very meaningful. So, how do we do it? Okay, so I think at this stage, we need to briefly go through the practice, as we've done each time, to get to the point we got to last week, so that then I can develop from there how we practice the completion, dissolution stage. So I think I need to maybe put the words. I can't see it. Just a moment.
You're right.
I got it. Good. So let's quickly go through, and it is quickly. I'm sorry, Chenrezig, but we need to go through it quickly. So first we are sitting, and then we imagine, we really feel next to us our parents, our siblings, our children, and those who've been very important for us, however you feel best with, but you can put all the males to the right, the females to the left. So your father, your mother, and so on. And then beyond those we've met vaguely, and then extending infinitely into space to all sentient beings, but with the feeling that in past lives, they've been very dear to us. They've been our mother, they've been our father, they've been our lover. We have a link from the past with each and every one of them. So we sit and re-establish this connection with all beings. And as we have that connection, then we see ourselves not just in everyday reality, but in a place of purity. We are reaching out to them, we are meeting them, or we are taking them to a place of communal purity, like a pure land. And then in front of ourselves and in front of everyone at the same time. So same thing happens. Whatever happens to us in the practice is happening for everyone else in our imagination. In front of us, the kindness, the compassion of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and in particular of our own Guru, manifests itself in the form of four-armed Chenrezig, white in color, and if we prefer, Chenrezig surrounded by an endless ocean of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And feeling that presence right there in our meditation place, in our room, as though Karmapa came into your room, as though Buddha Shakyamuni really and truly came right in front of you and all our fellow beings. Then we take refuge from the heart and we make the solemn and so meaningful promise of Bodhichitta. Sonje chodan soje chonam la chancho mando
Tane Chapsunchi Dagi Komde Jipe Sunam Ji Trola Benchera Sanje Drapashu Sanje Chodan Soji Chonam La Chancho Bandra Tanye Chapsunchi Dagi Komde Jipe Sunam Ji Drola Benchera Sanje Drapashu Sanje Chodan Soji Chonam La Chongcho Bandra Tane Chapsunchi Dagi Komde Jipe Sunam Ji Drola Benchera Sanje Drapashu. Then Chenrezig in front of us radiates light to us and to our fellow beings, giving the protection, the safety, the inspiration, the guidance, the refuge, and affirming our bodhisattva vow. And then Chenrezig and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in front dissolve into light that dissolves into us. We really feel we have their strength. Now we say the words of the next phase of the visualization, then I'll talk you through it. Daso ka chap sam chanji chitsu pe karada weten rile pacho chenrezi kasa wazema dentro Zezon toije chenji se chakshi tampo talcharaze Wonye shalchang pe karanam Dada rinchen jenji tre Rida pape toyo so Opame de Ujenchen Shapne Doije Children Shoy Dreame Daware Japtimpa Chapne Kondo Ora. So then we let our awareness go from being with our body to being just above the head. And we feel, imagine, visualize that above our head is a large 8-petaled lotus made of light. And that lotus is our ability to transcend our samsaric mind, be pure, to find purity. And on the lotus is a flat disk of light, a moon disk, which is that through that purity and in that purity, we find wisdom, and become wise about the nature of what's going on.
the karma, cause and effect, the Shunyata. So above us now is a lotus and moon disk. That's what they look like. What they feel like is purity and utter wisdom. Then on the lotus disk appears the brilliant white syllable Hri, facing forward. We hold our awareness one-pointedly, without a single distraction, on the Hri, and through that it becomes brighter and brighter and clearer, and the light it radiates goes in many hundreds and thousands of beams to all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the past, present, and future, making offerings and praise, and in particular requesting the blessing of their understanding, their experience, their realization of Chenrezig to come to us. And at the same time, the white light from the Hri goes to each and every being without number, without limit, from those in the deepest torments to those in relative lazy luxury. All of them on the wheel of life, up and down, round and round, endlessly. And this light of compassion from the Hri helps them, guides them, eases them, heals them, does whatever can be done to help them. And through this twofold activity of offering up and compassion down, then we sit in openness and allow the light to return from all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and from this compassionate work with sentient beings. And as the light returns and gathers in the tree, it makes it shine incredibly brightly, and instantly it becomes Chenrezig, with one face so beautiful we can barely look at it, so perfect. And the kindness and love for all beings is in the eyes and every part of the gaze. Chenrezig has the 5 dhyana Buddha crown, has 4 arms, 4 limitless contemplations, sits in perfect meditation in the body of light, a body like a hollow tent, graced by the 3 syllables, the white Om at the forehead level, the red A at the throat level, and the blue Hum at the heart level. Chenrezig is surrounded by a perfect aura and has Buddha Amitabha in the top knot at the crown of the hair. Half of the hair is in the top knot, half of it flows beautifully over the shoulders. Chenrezig's upper right hand holds a crystal rosary, and the left hand holds a lotus, and then the 2 lower hands are joined at the heart, holding the wish-fulfilling gem of the Mahamudra. Over Chenrezig's left shoulder is the deerskin, and Chenrezig wears the 5 types of jewelry, representing the first 5 paramitas, and then the whole body of light represents the 6th paramita, is the presence of all the paramitas. Then, from the depths of our being, with as much devotion and longing as we can manage in this short time, then we do the Jowo Junji prayer, longing to be like Chenrezig, with all of those qualities of the paramitas, the Buddha's 5 dhyana Buddha blessing, the legs so beautifully in meditation, and the feel of the legs is perfect shamatha, everything. We just long for our mind to become
Jowo Junje Maga Kondo Kara Zokson Jeje Wula Jen Tuije Chenje Drola Zi Chenrezig Lai Chatsalolo Joy Junji Maga Kundo Kara Zokson Jeje Ulajen Doije Chenje Drolazi Chenrezig Lai Chatsalolo Joy Junji Maga Kondo Kara Zokson Jeje Ulajen Tuije Chenje Drola Zi Chenrezig Lai Chatsalolo. Through our heartfelt devotion, totally focused on our Guru's Chenrezik nature, on the Chenrezik compassion nature of all the Buddhas, longing to be that, then Chenrezik shines again more brightly. And in one instant, we become Chenrezik, and everyone around us becomes Chenrezik, and everywhere becomes the pure land of the Potala of Dewachen. De tada se che son tape pape kule was a true madale non trushe jang china de wa chen jishin nam chu genro lunga sen Chenrezig wa ku sung tuk nandrarik tong yaramen. And then for a while we do the Chenrezig mantra. I won't have time to talk you through all the 10 things. We did that last week. But whatever you can remember of the 10 things that we do, concentrating on the visualization for a while, focusing on the sound of shamatha, on the Hri in Chenrezig's heart center, in our own heart center, shining light to beings, and then Om, Mani Padme Hum, each with their colors, each making their own sound, and the white light from the Om to the Deva realm and to our pride, and so on. We'll do just a little. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum,
So when we have time on our own, when you're on your cushion, then what we're going to do is now dissolve the visualization step by step. Dissolve it down until there's nothing left but the Hri syllable. Then the Hri syllable will dissolve bit by bit into itself until there's nothing at all. And we remain in meditation in the nothing at all. We'll go through that in a second. But you don't need to be telling yourself nothing at all, nothing at all, nothing there, emptiness. What happens is the fact that you've done the practice before the creation stage and that you've done the mantras, lots of mantras from the heart in all those 10 meanings, means that when you dissolve and just sit and relax, that nothing at all will be there all by itself. It's very special, and it's a wonderful teaching because we realize that Shunyata, the experience of Shunyata, emptiness, voidness, will only really be there. The Buddha's voidness will only really be there through the practice of lots of punya, virtue, merit on a relative level. The more our loving care and kind actions for other beings, the more they give us strength as the years go by, the more they become a fertile ground for the clear experience of Shunyata. So, because we've done the visualizations and then the mantra practice, when we just dissolve, we have nothing to do. It just is. And you'll find it will just be. That's nice. But then it just ends all by itself. You start thinking. Things start happening. You can't stop it. So immediately, your mind gets busy. You're no longer in that Shunyata space after the mantra. Then we return to the visualization with just enough time to be where we were before we dissolved. So there you are, you're Chenrezik again. Chenrezik's above you. It's all in a pure land. And it's Om Mani Padme Hum, Mani Padme Hum, doing the work of the mantra, but just for a little while. Maybe a few mantras. And then you dissolve again. Step by step, as we'll learn in a minute. Everything into the Hri into itself, the Hri, in the end, nothing left. And you stay in the nothing left. Until your mind gets busy again, until something happens, until you lose the clarity of Shunyata. A thought comes, a memory, whatever it is. Then you're back in the Pure Land, and you dissolve again. So let's say you have 20 minutes for the creation phase. You're 20 minutes dissolving, and then once your mind gets busy, coming back to the visualization and dissolving like that until the time's up, and then we go to the closing prayer, dedication, and the post-meditation preparation. So then how do we dissolve? Where are you when you're doing the mantra? Although you visit different parts, just like you've gone on holiday, you visit the beach, you go up the cliff tops, you go to this, you go there. Chenrezig is up there, and then we can visit different parts of Chenrezig, like the wish-fulfilling jewel, spend time there, say the mantra. We can visit the heart center, the syllables, and so on. You're the small Chenrezig down here, your guru, the large Chenrezig above you, everything Pure Land. So the way we dissolve is that, first of all, everything that is not Chenrezig above you dissolves into Chenrezig above you. So endless sentient beings in this endless pure land all around you who've been doing exactly what you've been doing on Mani Padme Hum, visualizing. We now feel them all dissolve into Chenrezig above us. And at the same time, we dissolve up into Chenrezig above us. No more you, just Guru Chenrezig. So that's all there is. There's no elsewhere. There's no you down here. There is just Guru Chenrezig, body of light, Oma Hung inside, all the clarity, purity. And then now, the next step is that the body of Chenrezig, which is, like a hollow shell, all the outer form of Chenrezig dissolves into the heart center, tree. And at the same time, in the heart center, the lotus and the moon disk and the tree and the Om Mani Padme Hum syllables, they all dissolve into the tree as well. Nothing was lost. When everything dissolves in all of everything it is, its essence, its many essences all dissolve. So now everything dissolved into Chenrezig above us, including us. It's like we took a lift up. Now we've dissolved upwards. Now all of Chenrezig dissolves into the tree of the heart center, including the Om Mani Padme Hum syllables and the lotus and moon. Then there's nothing left but the tree. So your mind now, if you can feel a shape of your mind is nothing but the syllable tree. You have become a tree of white light. And now, bit by bit, the tree will dissolve into itself. You have this in your notes. The two rings on the right-hand side dissolve into the foot of the tree, the syllable ra, rata. And then that dissolves upwards into the next stroke. That dissolves upwards into the next stroke. The main syllable ha dissolves upwards into the E sound above it, the little hook. Then the hook gradually dissolves into itself until it becomes a little ball with a tiny point at the top. And then if you're old enough to remember the first TVs, where they had a white dot in the center, but when you turned it off, it got smaller and smaller and smaller until in the end it went. It's exactly like that. So now I want to share on the screen the video. The video is not perfect. It was a work in progress. I hope it will be finished one day. So what your mind can do will be 1,000 times more brilliant than this. It's just to get you going, right? Just to give you an idea. You're not aiming to be as good as this video. You're aiming to be 1,000 times better, right? Because our mind can do amazing things in the imagination. Okay, so now I've got to find it here. So this is more or less where we got to last time. You put a hand up, everyone can see? Yeah, good. So we were doing lots of things when we did the mantra, but a lot of time was spent on the Om Mani Padme Hum and the Shri, and doing work with those. So let me take you through it. So now we're coming out from there, back to the whole picture of Chenrezig above us, and then we are Chenrezig below. There we are. And what there is and what there isn't in this video, but is the endless pure land all around, and endless sentient beings become Chenrezigs and Taras and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So the next thing is that all of that pure land that's not here is going to dissolve into Guru Chenrezig above. At the same time, us as Chenrezig below is going to dissolve up. Here the graphic needs working on. It doesn't sort of thin out and dissolve quickly enough, but it gives you the idea anyway. So there now. Everything dissolving, all the environment, everything dissolves into Guru Chenrezig, and including ourselves, we dissolve into Chenrezig. So now there's just Guru Chenrezig, who in turn will dissolve into the heart center. And the Om Mani Padme Hum and the lotus and the moon disk, they'll all dissolve into the three. I hope. Yeah, there we go. And now the three, the two circles dissolve into the bottom, very bottom stroke. It's a Ra. And then the bottom stroke would, or the A would dissolve into the, sorry, the A at the bottom dissolves into the Ra. That dissolves into the Ha. And the Kigur dissolves into itself to become just a dot of light, which then slowly fades, and we remain in this state. And as soon as our mind starts thinking, we return to the visualization, do a few Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. And then we dissolve again. We dissolve ourselves upwards into Chenrezig, or the environment along with us. Chenrezig dissolves into the heart center. Along with the lotus and the moon, and everything becomes the Re. Then the three, the two circles dissolve into the A, little A at the bottom. Little A dissolves into the Ra. The Ra dissolves into the Ha. The Ha dissolves into the Kigu. And that gradually becomes a small dot that gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And we remain here. So that's the dissolution. And there's not much more to be said about it. You have to do it. You have to do it and discover those magic moments when there is just this natural shunyata without effort. Key point is there is nothing to do at that stage. Don't do anything, just let it be. For as long as it lasts, and as soon as the energies start moving, the thoughts happening, or you find your biology, it's over. It's finished, like it or not. Then you have to go back and dissolve again and again. But then I must finish the explanation of the practice. So when we've come to our last dissolution, then we need to conclude our session with a very necessary dedication. All practice is so important. We have the right motivation to start with, but then we dedicate. So you probably know from other Vajrayana teachings, but I have to tell you that there is a reason that we dedicate. It's a very important training in karma. We need to learn to do things purely. Good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. Even a tiny action, drinking a cup of tea, you can be mindful, you can have beautiful thoughts of giving to those who don't have and so on, sharing, whatever it is. While you're doing it, your mind is pure. Then at the end, if you dedicate, the goodness, the virtue, the power of those seconds of goodness can never be stolen from you. It will help you through all your future lives, and by helping you in Dharma, you're helping everybody. If we don't dedicate, like put the seal of dedication and total giving, letting go to it, then what can happen? Pride, for instance. Oh, I did that cup of tea drinking quite nicely. I had very good offering thoughts, thinking, while I'm drinking this, whatever your favorite is, Lapsang Suchong, then I'm offering the finest teas to all the Buddhas, and there must be quite a bit of, I did well there, quite a bit of merit then. Well, there you lost it. Okay, there you were just wallowing in pride. Or you can have just ignorance, and just the whole goodness loses itself. Or you can be angry about how you had lovely teacups from Auntie Jemima, but your cousin stole them. All sorts of things can happen that can ruin those good seconds. So what we learn is, even if it's just half a minute, when you do something, an ordinary work, you do it with a pure mind, you do it with love for all sentient beings, you do it with mindfulness, you do it with Guru's presence as an offering and so on. And then at the end, we dedicate. So there are two things that need to be there when we dedicate. One is that we need to share that goodness with everybody. We're not putting it in our top pocket as well. That's another nice bit of stuff for me. We think we'd be happy. It's so nice to do something good, something that doesn't go wrong. Life's full of stuff that messes up. You start out with good intentions, and then you mess it up, somebody else messes it up. Big mess. So we learn, and we're happy, gosh, that was all right. So then quickly we dedicate it and think, this is for everybody. Something that's all right, I give to everybody. So that aspect of letting go, not for me, for everybody, it's one thing. The feeling of letting go is the most important thing in dedication. But the other one is an ability to move on. I've not got much time, but there's a Zen story, I think many of you know. It's two monks. So they've taken a vow of lots of vows. Monks take lots of vows. And one of them is not touching a woman. So the two monks come to a river, and there's, they're quite big, strong guys. And so in the story, there's a girl there who can't get across. The river's too strong. And so one of them, he just said, oh, yeah. And he helps her, he picks her up and carries her across, puts her down on the other side, and carries on the journey. And his friend said, do you realize what you just did? You touched a woman. And he said, you're not allowed to do that. And the monk turns around and said, oh, you're still carrying her. I set her down on the other bank of the river. In other words, he did something good and natural, but his mind moved on. That's already gone in the past. So it's a story to tell us about moving on. What happened 2 seconds ago? That was 2 seconds ago. It's gone forever. We're here now. It's part of our training to be able not to get stuck in the past. So when we dedicate, we give so beautifully to everybody. And we let go and move on. So the dedication prayers are what we do next. And in learning the original practice, we just have one short prayer. But very often, personally or in Dharma centers, people like to do many prayers because they feel we just did something nice. We did Om Mani Padme Hum, we did Chenrezig practice. We'd like this to benefit them and to help the Kagyu lineage and help beings in suffering, and then the world's out of skew. The seasons, the elements are out of balance. We'd like to do something for the world. So that's nice if you've got the time and you do it sincerely. Lots and lots of dedication prayers are wonderful. In Samiling, what's happened over the years is that different chant masters or Rinpoches have added this and not taken away anything else to add a new prayer. So sometimes the dedication prayers almost as long as the practice itself. A lot of time. It's nice. But in learning the original practice, the key practice, then we just have the one prayer. So let's return to it here. So having dissolved the three in the various steps you've got in your support document, then there's reintegration dedication. So when eventually we come out of the last dissolution, then we stay in the Pure Land. We re-establish the Pure Land, our visualization. It says, my body, the bodies of others, all appearances are the perfect form of Chenrezik, it's the blind one. All sounds are Om Mani Padme Hum, 6 syllables, and every mental activity is the play of Chenrezig's great wisdom, jhana. Da shen lu nang pa pe ku tra dra yi ge dru pe yang dren to ye shi chen pu long. So when we do that prayer, and the next one, which is the dedication, we usually have our hands folded to the heart. So there, through the words, we are re-established in the visualization, and we just stay there as we dedicate, and then as we get up off the cushion and go into life. So the next one is the Chenrezig dedication. Ge wan di nyon do da Chenrezig Mantra jurne Rowa chik jam malupa Deye sala kamparashu De taragom de jipesan ji da dan da la dranto roaken Mitsang lu de borwa jurma ta Dewa chendu zute je warsho
Chema Tatu Sabchu Rabtrame Trulpe Chochur Shenda Che Para Shu. So that final, excuse me, just a moment. That final dedication, as you can see, we're saying through the virtue of doing this meditation and recitation. I remember in the very first prayer at the beginning, we said, through this meditation and recitation, may I reach enlightenment. And I explained that actually it's code words for perfecting the six paramita. So anyway, through this practice, may I and all beings who have a link with me be reborn in Dewa Chen. As soon as we've cast aside these impure bodies, these reincarnation bodies, so when we die, may we be reborn there. And just after birth there, may we perfectly complete the 10 bodhisattva levels. So the idea is, if you know anything about Dewa Chen, it's an accessible pure land. Most pure lands, they take so much practice, so many lifetimes to achieve. Buddha Amitabha made a super pure land that we can achieve relatively simply. It always reminds me of hitchhiking back from India, which I did. And so someone who's got a car and money stops and picks you up and gives you a lift and gets you where you're going. And I went in some very nice big Mercedes. It was really a very good example of this. You don't have the karma for your own Mercedes, but through connecting up with someone who has that. So the whole Pure Land of Dewa Chen is based on Amitabha's prayers throughout eons of work through the bodhisattva levels, longing to be able to create a pure space so that those with enough faith and people who, it says you need to fulfill 4 conditions, then when you die, you can go to a place of mental purity that otherwise might be long, long, long into the future. So here we're dedicating that we ourselves, those who are closely connected with us, as soon as we leave this body, we are born there, and then through the unimpeded access to the pure Dharma that's there and all the wonderful auspicious conditions, we can work for everyone's good by going through the 10 bodhisattva levels. Okay, so I think with that, although it's been very, for me, frustrating, because so much I wanted to say and so much I wanted to share with you and couldn't. But anyway, I think we have gone through the bare bones of the practice. It's wonderful that this is going to be on YouTube, all 7 sessions, because you can go back, what you can't remember clearly, you can go through the teachings and the instructions again. And so now my own prayer, dedication, is that from now until you do die, Chenrezig becomes your very, very best friend. This practice is so simple. It is so accessible. And all of the great masters, all of them, and in particular our Karmapas, who are the embodiment of Chenrezig, or great teachers like Patra Rinpoche, they all say that although there are so many sublime and profound Vajrayana practices, they are all contained in Chenrezig. So I hope my giving you this gift from the lineage of transmission that I have the beauty and honor of receiving myself from reliable masters and experienced and realized masters. I hope you treasure it and you take it as a path
not just as a series of teachings you attended sometime in 2022. Let's dedicate to that end. Sonam diye tamche zikpani tobnene pedranam pamchene je ganachi pala chukpaye sipe tsole drowa drowarasho janchub semcho rinpoche mache panam jechochik jepa nyampa mepadam kongne kongdo pelwarasho Gewa di nyoduda, Chenrezig wan trupjone, Growa chikjang malupa, Teye sala kaparasho. And thank you very, very much for attending so nicely, listening so attentively. And now